let's talk some NBA now. Let's transition over now. Um, okay, so let's talk conference finals. So we're 4 games in each of these series. Uh, in the Western Conference, the Warriors currently lead 3-1 after the Mavericks win last night at the time of recording. And then in the Eastern Conference, that series is currently tied 2-2. So let's go ahead and start with the Western Conference and save the best for last here. Um, what has been your takeaways so far in that series? What key schematic things have you seen? And just give your overall observations for the series so far.
Well, I think when you look at the series, it's been a classic example of what the Warriors have been. I don't know why. My thing is echoing. You know? I don't know why that's happening.
Here, I'll go ahead and make and do mine while you're trying to figure that out. Okay, I can start with the Western Conference here. So obviously, as you guys know, I am a Mavericks fan. Um, and, after we won Game 7 in the Sun series, that's another thing that we haven't talked about over these last few weeks. I mean, I was very optimistic going into this series. Um, Previously, I had picked the Suns to win that series in 6, and I didn't really see a outcome where we beat them. But with like I went into that series with the understanding of if we can beat this team, we can beat anyone. And since we did beat the Suns, and especially in the way that we did it in a Game 7 with everybody locked in, and just blowing them out, I felt like exponentially more optimistic about this series. Um, but then Game 1 started, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is a different beast. I had picked the Mavericks in 6, um, because I felt like that was the only way we would be able to win the series. I just didn't see a outcome where we would be able to finish the job in a 7th game in San Francisco, with the way that crowd gets involved. Whoa, don't know what that was. Okay, in the way that they play on their home floor. So okay, just the key observation really is just the motion and the way that the Warriors run their offense. It presented an entirely different challenge for Dallas. And what I mean by that is just the cutting and the constant movement. It's so much harder to stay connected with these shooters, because the Suns, they have a certain way that they run their offense and they stick to that the entire game. But with the Warriors, there's no one possession that's the same. It's a different defensive challenge every time. They have certain sets that they run, but there's also never a time where players aren't moving around and moving the ball around. With the Suns, it was their high pick and roll with Booker and Paul, and then guys would spot up in the corners and on the wings, and that was their offense. They would have everything based upon that. They would have their movement where they would have the wing player in the opposite side on the weak side, switch side with the weak side corner player, but that's not really the type of movement that it's not really the type of movement that the Warriors have had, and that's something that I should have foreseen going into the series, but um, you know, I won't make that mistake again. This Warriors team is battle tested and they're championship ready, and they're champions for a reason. Um, this is a team that's been there and done that. So I just think overall, it was good that we won that last game last night. Not just to not get swept and have a little bit to build off of going into next season. and knowing that we can make the deep playoff run. And no matter what happens the rest of the series, it's been a successful year for the Mavericks.
I agree. Okay, I think I got the echo issue figured out. Anyways, yeah, I just think, I think that's a great point you brought up, and it actually goes back to something I heard Kevin O'Connor and Chris Vernon talking about on the Mismatch podcast, which is one of my favorite NBA podcasts to listen to. The way the Suns play basketball offensively, this is what you brought up, is very different than the way the Warriors play. There's a lot of motion, a lot of off-ball movement with the Warriors, and there's more sort of isolation-based basketball with the Suns, and it's easier to defend that type of basketball. But I thought, last night the Mavericks did a better job with that. Luka's, of course, going to get his. In Game 3, we saw the supporting cast of the Mavericks, and three-point shooting has been a big factor in this series. There's no doubt about it. We saw the Mavericks go cold from three-point range. I believe that Reggie Bullock, Maxi Kleba, and I think it was Dorian Finney-Smith went a combined 2 of 17 or something crazy like that in that game, and they were outshot from 3 by a wide margin. They lost that game at home in Game 3, but they came back last night, and boy, did they make shots. They actually doubled up the Warriors from three-point range, outscored them by 30 points. They made 23 pointers, shot just under 50%. The Warriors only made 10. Didn't really shoot the ball well. So, yeah, the three-point disparity, not only in this series, but in the playoffs as a whole, if you're winning the three-point line, and this is the NBA today, then you're winning games. And that has been a huge factor for the Mavericks, is not only Luka, hitting shots, but other players hitting shots as well. Reggie Bullock had a historically bad game in Game 3, came back last night, and I believe made 6 3-pointers. He bounced back just like that. And that's a key sign of growth for me, for this Mavericks team. On the Warriors side, we all know what this Warriors team presents. It's going to be hard for Dallas to beat them 3 more times in a row, in my opinion, 2 of which will have to be on the road at the Chase Center. But the Mavericks have shown already this postseason that if you get a little cocky, if you, show a little apathy, don't really play as hard, get a little sloppy on both ends of the floor, they will make it tough. They will be a tough out. They will not go down without a fight. And so I think for the Warriors, it's something that I think kind of has plagued them at times during the Steve Kerr era, is they've been so dominant at times. They've gotten up in these series, and they get a little too. And I know you've won 3 championships. You've been the dominant team of the past half decade or so. It's been great, but I just think in some of these opportunities to sweep, opportunities to close out, they've gotten a little too overconfident in themselves, and it's come back to hurt them at some times. So just get back to what you do, that championship pedigree, move the ball. I'm sure Klay Thompson will make shots. Steph Curry will do his thing. Draymond Green will do his thing. Kevon Looney, I don't think we can go this podcast without mentioning what he's been doing. He's been absolutely fantastic, especially in Games 1 and Games 2. What he did on the glass, what he was doing on the defensive end of the floor, all that stuff, his impact has been can't go without mentioning that. And then also, of course, the play of Otto Porter Jr., who just recently hurt his foot. That's not great for the Warriors, but he's been great as well. So I just think maybe the Mavs, they did get a couple games in Phoenix, right? They know, if they shoot the ball well, they always have a chance. They have probably the best player in the series. But I don't know. I just think the Warriors, they're going to be back in the finals. And, we'll get to the East here in a minute, but I think we're trending in a direction where we're going to get a Warriors-Celtics finals. And I think we've been trending in that direction for a couple weeks now.
Right.
With just some of the breaks that Boston has gotten and, of course, what the Warriors have been doing. But that's not to say to take any credit away from what the Mavs have done. I'm not going to lie, and I don't think you tell me, but not a lot of people thought that the Mavericks would be here in the first place. So it's great that they've gotten here to this point. But I'm kind of rambling at this point. Just be on the lookout for 3-point shooting because the team that shoots better in this series has been winning the games. Obviously, keep watching Luka Doncic and his brilliant play. And then the Warriors, their motion offensively and that defense with Kevin Looney in the middle of it has been fantastic. And I believe if they make the finals, they're going to get Gary Payton back. So that'll be huge as well.
Right. And one last thing I want to say before we move on is the one thing that the Mavericks can take away from this playoff run is I think we absolutely reached our ceiling as a team this playoff run. I think Western Conference Finals, you can ask most Mavericks fans, was the ceiling for this team. And we reached that. And I think in hindsight, I actually think the Luka Doncic injury in the first round actually helped this team. If you look at the way Jalen Brunson played in those first 3 games of that series, as well as some of the other guys on that team, and the confidence that was built in those 3 games, I think that has really helped throughout this playoff run. And seeing Jalen Brunson blossom the way he has this playoff run is really exciting. And, I'll get into the offseason stuff with the Mavericks in a future podcast, but I just want to end it with this. I think Jalen Brunson has to be priority number 1 this offseason, re-signing him to whatever number he desires.
I agree with that. Absolutely. And I think that's part of a youngish team learning the ropes of the playoffs. Your best player goes down, those players got to step up. And it sounds cliche, but it showed itself right at the beginning of these playoffs with the Mavericks, and that really helped those players start to feel comfortable. And then Luka comes back. It took a little bit, but now he's back in his groove. You have arguably the best player left in these playoffs of the 4 teams. And you have a supporting cast that has largely done a great job. And a head coach. I don't think we can go without mentioning the job that Jason Kidd has done as well. I don't think either of us expected this. Some of the adjustments that he's been able to make defensively, we can dive into that at a later point in time. And obviously, we'll be talking about the offseason extensively here once the finals concludes. But great job to Jason Kidd and the Mavericks for getting to this point. I think that's a great point that you made. They maximized their ceiling this season. Okay, they got a good, what now looks like a pretty good return for Porzingis, and that really, I guess, transformed their season. And of course, the Luka injury. Now that I wouldn't say he's fully healthy because I think he has a shoulder issue or something like that, but he's healthy enough to be the player that he needs to be. And it's been great. So hopefully they win another game. They make it hard for the Warriors. Maybe a game or 2. Take this to Game 7. Who knows? What's happened so far in these playoffs, you never know.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to click on one of these 2 videos right here. Our latest video right here on the left, or the video YouTube recommends for you on the right.